During a high school class project, my teacher told me it's unrealistic being a CEO. It's been my dream to be a CEO since I was 10. So I told her, it is realistic. Follow me on my journey to learn what it takes to become a CEO. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Realistic CEO podcast. Today I'm here with Matthew. How you doing today, Matthew?
Good. How you doing?
Doing great. So
Thanks for having me.
thank you for being able to come on today. So the first question I want to ask you is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do here at your facility?
Yeah, we're a local distributor of packaging, maintenance, safety supplies out of Agawam, Mass. And what we do is we try to deliver these supplies at a low fair price in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell me a little bit about your journey to how you got to where you are today?
For the last 15 years or so, 10, 15 years, I've been in a lot of different sales roles. And I always wanted a company of my own. My father has a business. So for me to follow in his footsteps in that regard, I was always looking for opportunities to build a business of my own.
How are you able to take what you learned from being a salesman to being able to run and own your own business successfully?
As a salesperson, I think it's a good place for business owners to start.
Mm-hmm.
If you can grow a business, you need sales, right? So if you can grow a business and find a good price effectively, not only for the customer, but purchase it properly, there's a lot of opportunities for you to grow a business. With this business, I started getting sales, and then I realized I'm gonna have to do a lot of running, working in the warehouse here. I bought a van real early, started the business in September of 2019. By about October, November, I was delivering my first delivery. It was right down the road in Agawam. It's one case of stretch film. And I thought that was simple enough. Now I just got to recreate it about 1,000 more times. So I started selling. And the next step was delivery. So they always say, under promise, over deliver. And this business is very time sensitive when people need their product. And I always have to gauge them. As a new customer, to have a good start, sometimes I'll have to say, can we start a week out on this account? Because there's lead times to certain types of product. And slowing down that sales process and giving the customer realistic expectations of, we can't get it to you tomorrow right now, but once we stock the product and we have the product in a week from now, we'll be able to service your account effectively.
So when you're finding customers, like, what are like some important things that to make sure that they know that they can trust you and make sure that they're getting their products that they order?
We have to stock it properly here. So my dad's a lean manufacturing consultant, and a lot of that business, especially on the manufacturing side, you have to have the product in-house, and you have to have, he always preached mins and maxes. These gloves here, you'll carry, we'll say, 20 cases, and we might burn through those in about a month. So when we get down to a minimum, we'll stock it up to 15, 20 cases. Once we reach 5 cases, we know, okay, we're gonna have more orders coming in next month. We gotta bump up the order to 15, 20. So there's this balance of inventory and basically just always being a reliable source, especially when they're in a jam. So the good customers, or easy customers I should say, they'll plan ahead, they'll give you 3 to 4 days. But it's not uncommon for a customer to say, oh my gosh, I didn't check my supply closet. We're gonna need these today or tomorrow. So we'll just grab a case, throw it in the van, run it out, and we like to think that creates a lot of customer loyalty.
So you talked about sometimes you want to have a minimum and maximum supply. So like when you're doing your research and make sure that you are getting the right number of supplies, what's the thought process behind the amount of supply that you want to have in stock?
There's a couple different trains of thought. A lean manufacturer will say as little as possible. That's not always the case. There is a sense of security when you overstock, and there's kind of 2 trains of thought. There's buy in bulk to get a better price, and then there's keep it lean so you can keep your cash flow healthy. One thing that I've learned over the last almost 5 years, 4.5 years, is once you bring on more inventory, you got to be very careful to watch cash flow and dead inventory. And those are reoccurring themes almost for every distributor, I'd say, across the board. Manufacturers, sometimes they'll do a little more volume for a certain type of product and they'll buy in bulk, but they're watching their inventory just the same. Right now, where I'm at, I like to, maybe I'm just following my father's footsteps. I like to keep things lean and high turnover, like high turns, low inventory. And in the event that things change or you have to adapt or change vendors, you stock up a little bit just so you're ready for the changes in the marketplace.
So can you tell us a little bit about like the different types? Like you said, you like to make sure you don't want to have like overstocks. Like, can you tell us like a little bit like the difference between just like having a good amount versus having too much stock?
It depends on how often your customers buy. You could stock monthly, you could stock on a 3 to 6 month basis. And if customers want to go a little bit further than that, there are opportunities in my industry to put them on a blanket order. So if they're going to use it and they want to lock in that price, you can actually put them on like a 12-month blanket order where you reserve the stock for them and they're not just buying off the spot market.
So what is some advice for somebody that might want to start their own distributor company?
I hear a lot of professionals say, don't, you'll have to deal with me, the competition. But as far as there's so many different types of distributors, I would say keep it simple, start with a couple of core items and build one thing that I like to do, and I'm sure every other distributor under the sun does it, but it's important for all distributors, is when you get an anchor, I always look for an anchor, high volume items like gloves, stretch film, tape, I'm very competitive in. And then what I do is I piggyback the smaller customers on that volume. Turns are coming from multiple different customers. And then once you have, say, 3, 5, 10 customers on the same item, then you don't have to stress so much about that inventory. It's going to turn. And then another thing is when you're in jeopardy of running into dead inventory or a one item anchor type product, just be very careful that you have a good relationship with that customer. And if need be, you put them on a blanket order. I learned that from a company I worked in the past. And the way they trained me was really, it was gold. It was very valuable.
So how are you able to network to make sure that you're getting the products that you need and also to make sure that you're finding customers that want your product?
Networking it comes in all different channels. So like here today, I feel like you're 18 years old, right? So anytime I can talk to an 18-year-old, your father, who's around my age, I look at that as a gold opportunity because we're going to be working together for the next 20 years, ideally. And anybody that can support me in the early years, like yourself, you're going to remember that and you're going to want them to win with you.
So when you're trying to find people that you want to win with, what are something that you look inside of a person to make sure that that's the type of person that you want to work with?
If they're hungry, for example, you guys were posting videos on LinkedIn, and I think it's a great business platform. So when I see somebody doing something different like yourself, I was like, you know what? I think I want to get ahead of this. I want to work with him and to grow the community together.
So when you first started, what were some things that you discovered, like some challenges or obstacles that you had to overcome that you didn't think about before?
There's a lot of challenges and obstacles. Working independently, you got to keep yourself busy. I listen to a lot of music, just finding a way to calm your mind and excite your mind. There's opportunities. It sounds a little bit different, but sometimes you'll see everybody around you is comfortable or calm, and I can't be comfortable right now. I have to be up. I have to be up right now. So you got to find music that can bring you up when you're down and calm you down when you're going through too much.
So you find music as a way to cope a little bit when you're like getting a little hyped or might be a little down.
Yeah, yeah. If you're in a down mood,
Hmm.
listen to music that inspires. You're in a zone where you know you're riding a little too high, find something that'll give you balance.
So you said that working as a solo distributor, it gets busy. You work a lot. So like, how are you able to make sure that you're not burning yourself out and you're still making sure that your business is running smoothly?
That's a great question. That's a question. If you asked me last year, I would have said, "Oh, I'm invincible."
Hmm.
I've had a couple customers over the last couple years. Some are brutally honest. They'll say, "Matt, you're slipping. You're slipping, Matt."
Hmm.
They'll text me. They'll say, "Matt, you're slipping. This product needs to be here today." And for me, that's a wake-up call. You can't do everything yourself. And every time you bring on a new person, you're taking on a risk
Hmm.
and a lot of responsibility. I probably pushed that out a little too far, but I brought on a driver, and there's people in the network that they want to help. So you got to, if you had your guard up, you got to let your guard down a little bit and see what they're willing to offer and listen to their contribution, how they want to help.
Hmm. So how have you been able to, throughout the years, make sure that you're able to stay focused in running your business?
How have I stayed focused?
Yeah.
The last 4.5 years, there wasn't much. If you take pride in what you do, there's not much room for lack of focus.
Hmm.
You have to get your AirPods on, do your jumping jacks, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
Go. I walk around the building, and people poke fun of me in the building. They say, "What are you doing walking all the time?" But that's just my routine. I like just getting in a good walk, listening to music,
Hmm.
and tasking out the things that I have to do for the day. There's a lot of urgency to even day-to-day deliveries when it doesn't feel like there isn't that much urgency in this particular product today, as opposed to 3-4 years ago. It did feel like there was a lot of urgency that I said, I have to do this for me. Now it's a situation where I have to do it because the competitor is going to do it if I don't do it. And that's why I brought on a driver, so there's some redundancy. If I need them to back me up, they can make the delivery.
So earlier on, you said that you seen your father run his own business, and you realized that's what you wanted to do. It's like, how are you able to learn from your father to make sure that you're able to run your own business?
My dad had a home office,
Hmm.
so he had his business line. I heard people leaving voicemails, and it was like the 90s. So when the voicemail went off, it was like on speakerphone.
Hmm.
So I was hearing salespeople leaving phone calls, and I've read cold calling books where they give you tips on like an efficient voicemail. They say it should be under about 16 seconds to get your point across. And like in my family with my sister and my brother, we would hear a salesperson
Hmm.
and he's in his second minute, and we would be saying like, he's taking too much time. This is too long. Like dad's not gonna listen to this voicemail. And then he'd come home and then we'd hear the voicemails. And sure enough, about 10 seconds in, he'd go beep, and it would be message deleted. Yeah, I think just organically being around him,
Hmm.
we learned a lot.
So you talked about how you were a salesman early on in your career, and a lot of business owners should learn to be a good salesman. So what are some tips to become a better salesman?
I think doing what you're doing now, just reaching out to people,
Hmm.
talk to everybody, and for a good salesman, I think the biggest thing for me is resiliency. You got to be resilient, and you got to just trust the path that you're on. Believe that it's going to get better if you keep working hard.
You said resilient. Like, how are you able to make sure that you're staying resilient? Because sometimes it might get a little hard when you're working. And
Oh, it does.
yeah, so like, how are you able to make sure that you're staying resilient?
I have a lot of people from the past that were some of the best salespeople
Hmm.
you'd ever meet. And they would stress keep a deep pipeline. A pipeline is, for a salesperson, you'll say you make 100 calls with 100 different business people that you want to do a podcast with. You might only reach 10 of them, and then 2 might be interested. But if you keep calling those 100 or a new 100 over and over again, you build a resilient pipeline. The next week you do another 100, and the next week you do another 100. 2 is going to turn into 4, 4 is going to turn into 8, just organically, because they're going to say, Mikey called me a month ago. Maybe I should give this kid a chance and see what kind of questions he wants to learn about. Like for me, you're in a good opportunity because you're 18, you're so young, and you want to learn. Like a lot of people aren't even asking the right questions or aren't asking questions. Converting a can-do attitude into how-to attitude, man, I couldn't stress that enough for your generation.
So you said some people don't ask the right questions, and then some just are too scared to ask questions. Like, how are you able to make sure that you're asking the right questions and you aren't scared to ask the right questions?
That's a good question. I think in my business, asking the right questions, I built my questions like a tree. You'll ask a question, and a lot of times I've asked so many questions that there's another question behind it that I've already asked. And if you follow the branches, you'll build rapport. You'll learn more about the product that you're selling. Even for me, I learned today, there's shipping managers that I ask questions about, oh, how do you use this strapping? How do you use this stretch film or this bubble and foam? And they've been using it for the last 20 years. I've been in the business world for 20 years selling. So their experience is way better than mine will ever be. I could learn a tutorial, but they're the ones that are now the experts. Sometimes even more than the rep that comes in because they've used it for the last 20 years.
So when you're asking questions and you're willing to learn from the people that already have more experience than you, how has that been able to help you grow your business?
It builds like a web. The people that you would least expect to be part of the answer, through my experience, they're the ones that are the most knowledgeable. They'll give you insight that somebody that's super successful, they might have some insight, and you can find it in a book, you can find it on a TV show, because success rises. But the people that have failed, they'll tell you about their problems, and then you can learn from those. So it's a double-sided coin. You look up to somebody, and a lot of people they'll shake their head and say, that person's, they're not successful. But I follow people, I'm very resilient in who I stick to for role models. And if I see them make a mistake, I say, that's something I'm gonna try not to do.
So you said that you're like very particular and like you want to make sure that you follow the right people as role models. So like when you're looking at somebody to see as your role model, like what are something that you're looking inside of a person and be like, yeah, this is the type of person that I want to follow?
Resiliency, creativity. There's a lot of people that follow the same path to success. And the people that are doing things different, they're going to run into the most challenges. So you see somebody doing something different, I just keep an eye on them, see what they're up to. And a lot of the people that tried different things, they'll fail 100 times, they'll try 100 times and they'll fail 95% of the time. But it's the 5% success that is a differentiator.
So how are you able to find mentors to help you learn how to run your own business the right way?
My dad has always been right there. My brother's a really consistent person. We talk a lot, and I was like, don't forget to thank people. Let's write a thank you letter. So he stresses, if I do have success, to be grateful, gratitude.
So how are you able to make sure that your customers feel like I really do appreciate your service? Like how are you able to make sure that they feel that you are recognizing them and you appreciate them as well?
Yeah, that's a tough thing to do. I should work on it more. I got a buddy that he says, you could bring them cookies. I try to deliver quickly and try not to miss a delivery, go above and beyond for what they're looking for. Under promising and over delivering is a big thing that I try to focus on. I'd like to create like a rewards program. But that's a great question. As far as saying I thank you via social media or writing a thank you, I think that's important. But I got to work on going above and beyond and showing gratitude on a personal level. Like with your book, I read your book, and I like the fact that you signed the inside and said this is X number out of 250. That was a nice touch. You're grateful for my business.
Thank you. So I have a couple more questions I want to ask you. So I noticed that before we started doing the podcast, you talked about your family. Like, you seem like you really like very much care about them a lot. How are you able to balance your work life with making sure that you have family time as well?
With the balance of running a business and having a 2-year-old and trying to organize my day, I think my wife does a much better job than I do. I'm still working on the balance, but that's another great question. These are kind of things that I prioritize, and I have a sense of urgency when it comes to business. I think I might stress out my wife a little bit. I'll say, I got to get into work. I got to do this. I got to do this. And especially when there's like deliveries that day that have to get done, working the balance of getting deliveries out, keeping my wife happy, family vacations. I'm very proud. This year I went to the Cape for vacation. It was like my first 5-day vacation where we went somewhere. So 4.5 years as somebody running a business like yourself, that was unexpected. I would have thought it would have been sooner. But yeah, I got a 5-day vacation at the Cape, so that was exciting.
That's great. So in the book, actually, Tony, he talks about LBW, the long, lonely, boring work. So can you tell us about your experience of owning your own business and the long, lonely, boring work that you have to do?
I feel like some of the work was very exciting in the early years, and now we're getting into the grind work, the boring work. But long, lonely, boring work. This warehouse, this building, 270 Main in Agawam, there's been a lot of nights where I might be the only one in the building, and I'm unloading or setting up a delivery for the next day. And in the beginning, it feels boring, but it's almost, I use a sports analogy. If you practice when other people are still in bed sleeping on a weekend, you get up early. There's a little sense of pride that I'm doing things that nobody else is doing. So if you can take the long, boring work, the long, lonely, boring work, and turn it into a little bit of a game, almost like a sport, and you can say, I'm going to do this, and I don't think anybody else in this hour, especially if you get up early or work after hours, convince yourself nobody else is doing this. And when I feed off of that fuel, that nobody else is doing this, there's like fires you up where you're like, all right, I'm gaining on them. Because every day you're trying to find an advantage. And if you can believe that you're gaining, then you're gonna grow the business, I think.
How were you able to adopt that mindset of, yeah, I guess I'm gonna get up early or work later to make sure that I'm gaining an advance from my competition?
Right. With a 2-year-old, it's made it a lot more difficult because I got to get home for bedtime and watch her in the morning. But now bringing on people that can help, I think, is like the next level for me. So I was trying to do it all on my own, and I was taking pride in using hours that other people weren't using. And I appreciate my wife for letting me do that for a couple of years. But now it's got to be much more structured. Now it's like a time management thing, and I'm still working on it. But like I used to have a boss that say, take the last 15 minutes of your day, of your work day, and plan out the next day. And whenever I do that, it's like momentum. It turns into, okay, the next day was better, and then the next day was better. And then you start to realize you're compiling. I just had a good week, and now I had another good week. And then good weeks turn into good months.
For the final question I want to ask you, I wanted to keep it fun. Can you tell me one thing about yourself that nobody really knows about?
trying to think as far like personally,
Yeah, just like a
or
little fun fact about yourself that. Yeah.
Fun fact. Trying to think. Usually it's like hobby-wise, something that not everybody knows about. I like to look up real estate in Hawaii, and it's like a dream of mine to own some kind of real estate in Hawaii. It might be. I don't tell a lot of people about it. There's a chemist down the hall. Sometimes he's a vendor too. I'll send him like a Hawaiian villa that's probably out of my reach, but just send out the dream to a few people. And yeah, I would say real estate in Hawaii is something that I like to check out with my spare time.
So thank you for being able to take the time out of your day to allow me to interview you today. So I really do appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So,
appreciate it.
Hey guys, this is the end of this podcast episode. See you guys in the next one. Peace.